Hey, Daily Dosers, it's Kristen from the Fabric campus, and I'm so excited to continue down our Hall of Faith with you today. I'm going to jump all the way to verse 32 and look at a guy named Barak today. And Barak's story comes from Judges 4, which is one of my favorite stories in the whole Bible. And just to refresh your memory a little bit, so this is a period in Israel's history where they have no king, and there's a series of judges that are ruling over them. And at this particular time, it is my favorite judge, Deborah, who is also a prophetess, and they have been severely oppressed by the Canaanites, and they cry out to God for him to deliver them. And he starts to put in motion this plan. And he says to Deborah, hey, summon this guy named Barak, and he's going to lead an army of 10,000, and I'm going to give you victory over the Canaanites. And God is going to promises to be with them. And so Deborah goes to Barak and says, hey, this is God's plan. And Barak says, awesome, I will do it under one condition. And that is that you, Deborah, come with me. And so in Judges 4:9, this is Deborah's response. She said, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, there will be no glory for you in the journey you are taking, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. Sisera was the commander of the Canaanite army. And Deborah says, God is going to give you some discipline, Barak, because you've been hesitant and because you had some conditional obedience. He, instead of giving you the glory of the kill shot of the commander of the enemy army and getting that glory and ending the war, someone else is going to do it for you. And it's going to be a woman. And if you read on, you learn that woman is not Deborah. That woman is Jael. If you remember the tent peg through the temple story, it's a good one. But basically, the commander of the enemy army runs on foot when the battle gets heated, and he goes into a tent of who he thinks is a friend, and he gets all cozy and he falls asleep. And as he's sleeping on his side, Jael, puts a tent peg through his temple and he dies, thus ending the war, getting the glory, and fulfilling the prophecy of Deborah. And so just to be honest, when I read this story, I'm like, why are Deborah and Jael not in Hebrews 11? Because to me, they're like the heroes of the story, and Barak is just among heroes. It's sort of like choosing Robin over Batman. It's like, there's nothing wrong with Robin. He's a great guy, right? But Robin's not why we're here. We're here for Batman. And I see Deborah and Jael as being the heroes of the story, yet Barak's the one mentioned in Hebrews 11, not them. And as I dive into Barak's story a little bit more, I've come to love and respect this guy so much. Because did you notice in verse 9 what his response to Deborah was after she told him, you're not getting the kill shot? It's basically silence. He doesn't say anything. Just the next verse is like, so they got their stuff, got their army together and went. And to me, I'm like, he didn't even push back a little bit. And here's what I had this aha moment with Barak was, God did not have to work around Barak's ego. This guy does not have an ego that God has to tiptoe around, or the leaders in his life have to tiptoe around. He is just like, hey, I may have had a setback, but let's keep going. He's not going to get the fame that was maybe originally kind of tempting, but he said, whatever role I get to play in God's story, that's the role I'm going to play. It's okay if I have a setback. He accepted God's discipline and moved on. And I'm not even going to pretend to know what it's like to be a man in ancient Israel under the advisement of a woman leader. But he obviously respected her leadership so much that he said, I want you to come, please, come with me. And to me, that said so much about where his heart is at, of like, this guy does not have an ego that anyone has to work around. And when he experiences discipline or a consequence or a setback, he just says, all right, let's keep going. And I love that he could focus on the big picture to see that this is not Barak's story. This is God's story. And I have to think that's what got him that honorable mention in Hebrews 11, is that he knew this was God's story and he just kept moving forward and had no ego. And I guess the question for us this morning is how many of us could be used or used in greater ways if we could just drop the ego, if we could listen to leaders we're supposed to listen to, if we could reconcile relationships we need to reconcile instead of waiting for the other person to come first, but just dropping the ego like Barak and keeping the big picture in mind that this is God's story, it's not ours, and that we need to pick ourselves up and just keep going.